All right, what's going on, everybody? I watched the tape this morning of the 49ers preseason game against the Titans. Have a lot of notes. Want to go through some of them succinctly. I know that preseason football can be boring. Kyle Shanahan was a little bit bored last night. He gave up play calling duties to Clay Kubiak. I can't believe that people are making a big deal out of that. And brace yourselves. Brace yourselves for some really bad takes over the next few days, reading way too far into Kyle Shanahan in a meaningless preseason game, giving one of his top offensive assistants play calling duties. People will think that this means something. It doesn't. Shanahan even said that he was bored, and I wrote about that up on The Athletic. You could go check it out because he didn't have anything to do. He's like, my hands are free. Normally he's sitting there looking at the play sheet, having to think about how he's going to scheme the next series. Clay Kubiak had those duties this time, and he was the one that was in the quarterback's ear. So Shanahan didn't get to do that. Shanahan actually, he was so bored that he was watching tape early in that game during that first Titans kick return on his tablet, because the NFL actually allowed coaches to do that. It's not permissible during the regular season, but during the preseason, it was okay. And he didn't realize he was standing out on the field during Tennessee's kick return, so officials flagged the 49ers 15 yards. Anyway, I digress. Why don't we get to what actually happened in this game? Speaking of special teams, the very first 49ers kick return was going to be fascinating to me, just to see if they came out with any special strategy. And I thought that they played it straight up. It was two return men, obviously. It was Ronnie Bell back there in front and Trent Taylor. And Ronnie Bell ended up being in front of Trent Taylor as a lead blocker. So they ran it like a traditional running play. You had a fullback and a running back. And that's what I had gotten in practice out of this team and their strategy there. I think that they're a team in practice based on what I've seen, and it's hard to really diagnose. And I think that teams, it's a combination of playing it close to the vest with these new kickoff rules, and B, just not in knowing exactly what they're going to do because it's such a new play. It's one of the most drastic rules changes that we've ever seen. But I think that Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, and Deebo Samuel have been the 49ers A team. I think that they're leaning toward that being their top two guys back there, because yesterday I watched, especially on the second kick return, Ronnie Bell is 190 pounds. He's not like a big receiver. Can he be physical in the context of blocking defensive backs? Sure. But it didn't seem that he really wanted any part of lead blocking against bigger defense. I mean, you put tight end size bodies out there on these kick coverage units. And it seemed to me that he wasn't really trying to put his head down and get in front of Trent Taylor on some of these returns. And I think that Kyle Juszczyk, he obviously specializes in that. He's more than 190 pounds. He obviously didn't play in the game yesterday. But once this becomes real, once the 49ers are playing games that matter, I think that they're going to want to have a bigger lead blocker on some of those kick returns. So that was my impression of the kick returns. Kyle Shanahan said yesterday, and I have it all up in my piece. I'm going to get my piece out here for you on The Athletic. He said that this was about curiosity. He wasn't even watching that first kick return. He was looking down at tape of the offense on his iPad, because he knows he's going to get the film later, and now he's going to get film. And so special teams coordinator Brian Schneider, they're going to get film of the whole league trying out these new kick return rules, and they're finally going to be able to start formulating their strategy. So it was really foolish, I think, to read too far into what was happening on the field yesterday as far as special teams went, because A, these teams aren't going to show anything, and B, there's nothing really to show until they can start studying what's happening around the rest of the league, so they could start adjusting and counter-adjusting according to that. All right, so we got takeaways from the 49ers preseason opener. I'm going to send this over to Mike so he can go ahead and toss it onto the screen. But this was what I was writing late into the night here in Nashville yesterday. That's Brandon Allen. As you could see, Malik Mustapha is listed in the headline, and we're going to go through a lot of what I just watched on the tape this morning over breakfast. I have the advantage of being a couple hours ahead of those of you who are on the Pacific Coast, so I got to wake up early, watch the tape at the coffee shop, and move from there. Mike is adding the article, which should be up on the screen. Here it is. He's adding it into the description of this. Okay, so first play. I'm just going to go through this chronologically. The 49ers offensive line looked really good in this game. I'm talking about the first team offensive line. So that's going to be, it was Chris Hubbard at left tackle, Banks at left guard, Nick Zakel at center, Dominic Poney, the rookie, looked nice at right guard, and Colton McKivitz at right tackle. That group had a really good drive to open the game with the exception of one play, which was the first one. And the Titans, they brought a blitz on the first play of the preseason, which told me that they were taking this really, really seriously. It's kind of a no-no in the preseason. The blitz on the very first play. Remember in 2011 when the New Orleans Saints just lit up the 49ers with blitzes in the preseason? That was Jim Harbaugh's first game, and San Francisco wasn't really ready for him. I mean, especially if you're putting your backups out there, complex blitzes, even straightforward blitzes are something that it takes all of August and all of camp to really be ready to field them and pick them up. I mean, even first team offenses right now with fewer practices and less preparation are looking a little shoddy throughout the first week of the first few weeks of the regular season. I'd say that September football offensively is as ugly as it's ever been. And I think it's because defenses, of course, in the regular season, they'll start throwing these blitzes and they'll start, defense will be ahead of offense early on. But when you start throwing blitzes early in the preseason, I think it shows that you have a lot invested in the game, maybe more than you should have invested in the game. The Titans also started their first stringers. It was almost all of their starters were out there. Not all of them, but more than the 49ers, who only had those, 2 or 3 offensive linemen who are going to be starters starting for this team on that first drive. And that Titans blitz, it was a straightforward one. It was a linebacker right up the A gap on the first play. You could tell that it caught the 49ers off guard. And, you have to be ready for anything anytime you step on a football field. But there typically is a bit of a gentleman's agreement in the preseason that you're not going to bring an A-gap blitz on the very first play. It's an unspoken agreement, I guess I should say. That the Titans obviously did not follow it, and they just crushed Brandon Allen on the first play. Now, at the same time, Sebastian Joseph Day, or I should say 49ers legend Sebastian Joseph Day, had a few games with them last year, who's now a starter for the Titans, was playing defensive tackle, and he just ran over Aaron Banks. So you had the linebacker unblocked through the A gap, 49ers not ready for the blitz, and Sebastian Joseph Day just plowing over Aaron Banks. From the TV copy, it's hard to tell if Banks tripped or he just wasn't ready for the sheer amount of vertical pressure that the Titans were bringing, but he ended up on his back. The linebacker ended up hitting Brandon Allen, and the first play obviously went incomplete. So we spent a lot of time talking about the 49ers' failure there on the first play and why it might have happened. They probably weren't ready for it, whatever. They got up off the mat after that. Brandon Allen missed high to Jordan Mason on a short throw, but on 3rd and 9, he hit Ronnie Bell. The pass protection, I thought, was excellent from that point forward from the first team offensive line. I mean, the intermediate 3rd and 9 to Bell was a hell of a play from a clean pocket, and the Titans rushed 4, but they had 4 with their ears pinned back, and it was 4 players higher up on their depth chart with their ears pinned back, and the 49ers anchored across all 4 spots of the offensive line. So impressive stuff from the 49ers to move down the field. Of course, Jordan Mason was running like a man possessed on that first drive. He had 40 family members in attendance. Jordan Mason, he's from Gallatin, which is about 30 minutes north of Nissan Stadium, where the game was played last night. So I'm walking through the concourse. I saw a lot of Mason jerseys all walking in one pack together. So I'm like, okay, there's Jordan Mason's family. And of course, his dad was in the house. His dad has helped him on the jugs machine, working out in this area over the summer. But he was in a rush out of the locker room, talked to him for a few minutes. He's like, I can't wait to go see all the people, like 40 of them, family and friends that came to watch. So he wanted to put on a show in his limited time, and he only had time there at the very start of the game. Ends up at nearly 6 yards a carry, just pushing the pile backwards. And if Mason didn't have enough leg strength to push 5 men backwards at any point, Dominic Poney was there to help to push him across for the touchdown. Yeah, I'm watching the replay of that Dominic Poney pull block, and he did such a good job on the touchdown. He's coming from right guard, crosses the formation, takes out the linebacker. As soon as he takes out the linebacker, he trails Mason, not only pushes him to the end zone, but kind of grabs the whole pile and throws it into the end zone. Poney's a strong guy. I mean, he's physically ready for this level. A lot of time you'll have an offensive lineman come in and you're like, okay, he's going to have to hit the strength and conditioning program. This is going to take a year. With Nick Zakelj, it definitely took a little bit more time for the 49ers to be comfortable putting him into a playing situation that was more featured as it was yesterday for that first team center job. By the way, Zakel's in a competition with Ben Barch, I think, to be the 49ers interior swing lineman. If everybody stays healthy, they're going to have to cut somebody that I currently have on inside my 53-man projection along that offensive line, because they've got 10 right now. They're not going to carry 10 O-linemen. There's not room for that. They've carried only 8 most years in the past, and 9 is probably going to be the max. So Zakelj against Barch, that's a really interesting competition. But anyway, Poney is just so physically ready, strength-wise, for this level. I thought that was a big takeaway from the game yesterday. I mean, he was out there anchoring against the pass rush, and we know that he's been a better pass blocker than run blocker. He didn't give up a single sack over 2 seasons of college ball at Kansas. So you're wondering, how does he move? Because how you move, that's what they like about Aaron Banks, for example. Aaron Banks is a great first step. He can move really well from the left guard position. So how's Poney going to move from the right guard position? A great way to figure it out is to pull him on, the very first big goal line play of the game. I don't know, were they 6-7 yards out from the end zone? They pull Dominic Poney, which means he moves from right guard across behind the center to the left side. So he's got to have a great first step to make that play work, because you have to get to that left gap ahead of the running back, Jordan Mason, who's obviously very explosive, to knock out the linebacker who's going to try to plug that gap. And Dominic Poney got the job done. It reminded me a little bit of Brandon Ayuk on the block against the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, and that he took out 2 guys in one play. He took out Alex Highsmith, and he took out DeMonte Casey about 15 yards downfield. Well, I mean, same idea. Take out the linebacker and then, help push Jordan Mason across the goal line. Other plays, Poney he held up well in pass protection. Remember when they were backed up, the 49ers, the guy up on your screen, Brandon Allen, up against their own goal line? And, Brandon Allen obviously threw the deep pass to Ronnie Bell that was dropped. I'll talk about that play in a little bit, because there's some good blitz pickup pass protection from Cody Schrader. But even though that was dropped, they picked up the first down the next play with a great intermediate throw to Frank Darby from Brandon Allen, ASU receiver, former teammate of Brandon Ayuk and Ricky Pearsall at ASU. But on that play, that was another, okay, the defense is going to pin its ears back and get after the quarterback. And we've seen 49ers offensive linemen in the past just get bowled over because they're on their heels. They're a bit lighter. They don't have as strong of an anchor. They're more focused on run blocking than pass blocking. So the 49ers have had trouble in these straight drop situations to protect. Poney, in that situation and many others, held his own on these anchor ask plays, where he was asked to just show a solid anchor and not let the pocket cave in front of him. So I think it was a tremendously positive performance from Dominic Poney. I'm really excited because now that I've watched the tape, I always love to see what the advanced metrics say. Love to go see what PFF will say about the pressures given up. I don't think that we have the pressure numbers yet from PFF, but as soon as we do, I will, of course, report some of those. We might actually have some up now. Yeah, it looks like the 49ers and the Titans game. Now it says grades pending review. So we're still waiting for those numbers, but Poney didn't give up a lot at all, and that is an arrow up for the 49ers. All right, more stuff. I'm moving down. So Brandon Allen missed that short throw early to Jordan Mason, and then he missed one. Remember the screen that he missed Braden Willis on? I mean, he tried to rainbow toss it, and it just went over Braden Willis's head. I talked to Brandon Allen in the locker room after the game, and he said, yeah, I've got to be better with some of the short passes. He thought that his short game wasn't quite on point, but his intermediate game and his deep game were both on point. I mean, both of those games, between the deep pass to Tay Martin, which was perfect, might have been pass interference. Martin couldn't haul it in, even though he dove for the football, but it was a perfect throw. I thought Brandon wasn't all too happy with his deep pass out of the end zone to Ronnie Bell, but I thought that was on the money. I mean, it hit Ronnie Bell in the chest. It should have been caught. And then, you talk about the throw to Darby, you talk about the throw to Chris Conley, or the intermediate that Bell caught earlier in the game on the 3rd and 9. all that stuff was on the money. So it could have easily been a 9 of 1,370-yard performance in the first half for Brandon Allen had those two deep passes been hauled in the way they should have been hauled in by the receivers. So good outing from Brandon Allen. Even better, I thought, when I rewatched Josh Dobbs this morning, I thought I was even more impressed. Now, Dobbs didn't play against as high of a caliber of a Titans defense, but he'll have that chance next week. They'll probably flip-flop the order. They'll go Dobbs early and Brandon Allen later, probably get some Tanner Mordecai next week. But Dobbs, I mean, this is a physical player. I mean, there's some wow factor to his throws. He was hitting him outside the numbers consistently up until that last desperation drive. He had a nice throw to Trent Taylor about 20 yards downfield on the move. But he was going for it. Tay Martin was a favorite receiver of Josh Dobbs. Martin got a lot of run a little bit later in the game. And I was impressed with the arm talent. I have been at practice. I think he's definitely got more physical upside than Brandon Allen. And you saw it on the touchdown where he shook off the outside linebacker. He was too strong to bring down, just with a flying blitz tackle. And then he scrambled and then he dove acrobatically, helicoptered as he took contact from the DB into the end zone. I mean, impressive stuff. We saw Dobbs run really effectively last season in an Arizona Cardinals uniform against the 49ers. And, funny enough, we had a chuckle about this in the locker room. I tell Josh, hey, it's better than last year, right? Your last team where you had to have a kind of a pop quiz crash course in the playbook with the Minnesota Vikings because he got traded from the Cardinals to the Vikings, and the Vikings needed him like 2 days later against the Falcons. And Dobbs goes in on a 2-minute drill drive, leads the Vikings to victory while having only been in the building for 2 days, 48 hours. It might have even been less than that. And that's where he got a lot of good positive press, deserved press for just being such a smart guy, being able to pick things up really quickly. But it was still really, really hard for him when you don't know the language, you don't know the terminology. Now he's been with a team, the 49ers, for several months. They signed him in free agency, so he obviously knows the terminology. He's more comfortable in there, and it looked so. It definitely looked so with some of the throws he was making. Of course, there were a couple protection breakdowns that Dobbs really had no control over, and yeah, he had to take those sacks, and at the end, he threw the pick on the Hail Mary. But that's not really what we're looking at in a game like today. Yesterday, we were looking for competence at backup quarterback. That's what the 49ers needed to see. And they definitely saw competence at backup quarterback. And I mean, there's 4 things I think that the 49ers wanted to see in this game. Competent protection from their first string offensive line. Check. Solid play from their backup QBs. Check. I thought that was a concern after losing Sam Darnold to Minnesota, but it's looking good now between Dobbs and Brandon Allen. Flashes of high ceiling from youngsters like D. Winters and Malik Mustapha. Double check. I mean, we're going to get to that in a second. And then a general avoidance of injuries was the 4th thing. And unfortunately, that was the only thing that didn't happen. I think maybe generally they did avoid injuries, but they did see Ambry Thomas break his forearm. And before people turn into smart asses and say, well, yeah, Thomas committed the holding penalty and they picked on him in the game, you don't ever want to see anybody get hurt, especially at a value position like cornerback, where you'd much rather have Ambry Thomas than somebody like Brian Allen. And those of you who don't know who Brian Allen is, you're probably a bandwagon fan. You probably haven't been watching the 49ers when things weren't going as well. But in 2020, they had to pull a guy off the practice squad, and that was Allen against the Miami Dolphins because they ran out of healthy cornerbacks, and he got mercilessly picked on. I mean, it was an absolutely brutal performance. And the 49ers certainly wish they would have had Ambry Thomas in that game. He's obviously not a perfect player. He's fighting to make the roster right now, but he has delivered one of the great moments in 49ers history with the interception against Matthew Stafford in overtime of that Week 18 game, do or die, that sent the 49ers to the playoffs. And, the fact that Ambry is on the bubble of this team is a testament to how deep the 49ers are in the defensive backfield. And nobody who watches the 49ers, anybody who watches football, just a fan of the game, shouldn't be rooting for an injury, shouldn't be rejoicing in an injury. But anybody who knows the game knows that you do not ever want to reach a point where your depth at the cornerback position is precarious. And Ambry Thomas is valuable depth at that cornerback position. He did break his forearm yesterday. But the other three things that I listed, the O-line, the QB play, the high ceiling from the youngsters, those three things, those all happened. I mean, speaking of Malik Mustapha, it's up on my Twitter. Go check it out at Lombardi himself. Malik, we all saw the fourth down stop, right? That was an awesome performance from Malik Mustapha, coming in from the end line, diagnosing the play, rockets up through the line of scrimmage, makes the tackle. Officials get it wrong. Kyle Shanahan gets some exercise throwing the challenge flag. At least he wasn't too bored on the play. That was great. But then there's a kick coverage play later in the game where a tight end is holding Malik Mustapha for about 25 yards. And Malik is able to ride through the hold because he's just such a strong ball of muscle and still make the tackle. It should have been a penalty for sure. The officials didn't throw a flag, but there should have been a holding penalty called on the Tennessee Titans on the play. It didn't matter to Malik Mustapha. I can't play the clip here. NFL has it as copyright protection over the clip. So go to the Twitter. I retweeted. I think it was Coach Yak or somebody that posted it, and you will see it's very up high in my feed if you're watching live right now. Malik Mustapha, the guy was born to play football. I talked to him in the locker room after the game. I think that Mike actually sent me some video of Malik yesterday from my video in the locker room so we could play that. Yeah, here it is. We're going to play that. He's extremely, extremely impressive. My mother-in-law actually texted me after, and she said that she watched this video of Malik Mustapha and said that it gave her Brock Purdy vibes. And if that gives you Brock Purdy vibes, well, that's a great thing, because Brock Purdy obviously carries himself really, really well, really impressively, really cerebrally. Well, Malik Mustapha does too. Why don't we have a listen at Malik Mustapha talking in the 49ers locker room?
Kind of, analyzing the offense, see, what things I can expect. How can I anticipate routes? How can I, kind of predict where the quarterback wants to go in certain situations? All in all, just bring that all together. Once you get comfortable, once your confidence goes up, at the end of the day, you're going to, be able to play free and be able to try out different things and be able to execute at a high level. So definitely something that's going to be a progress for me being a rookie, but having a lot of guys in my DB room and just guys in this team that just help me and, build my knowledge of the game. So I'm excited.
So there's Malik Mustapha. That's just a snippet. The rest of the interview is available on the channel. But between what we've seen at training camp, and that's him covering center field with a great anticipation, right? And then what we saw during this game, and we saw a few great blitzes also already during training camp. He's instinctive near the line of scrimmage. He played a position at Wake Forest, especially on third downs, called the Panther, where he even lined up as a down defensive lineman on these third downs. Offenses didn't know where he was going to line up. I mean, he was outside linebacker, inside linebacker, safety, nickel, occasionally defensive end. It was crazy. He was all over the field in this Panther package. And when you look at his body type and you look at him just shrugging off tight ends for 25 plus yards on kick coverage, you're like, okay, ball of muscle, runs a 4.49, but has the strength of a player that typically runs a lot slower. You could see the 49ers already really, really getting excited about different spots they can play Malik Mustapha. Of course, safety is going to be the first position for him. He's got to learn that. Actually asked Brandon Staley about it, because Brandon Staley was the defensive coordinator of Jalen Ramsey in 2020 with the Rams. And Jalen Ramsey was playing the star position. He's inside, outside. And then Derwin James was playing everywhere under Brandon Staley for the Chargers. The first look at Malik Mustapha is this guy can play all over the field. Second player that was of big interest yesterday was D. Winters. And I mentioned that Winters, it was some good, it was some bad. People try to jump to one conclusion and then they stick to it. And, I feel that the reason that we have good analysis here is because I'm just unbiased and balanced about this kind of stuff. I loved a lot of what D. Winters did. But, it's almost blasphemy then once the prevailing thought is, D. Winters was awesome, to say that there are a couple of plays that were a little bit concerning. And he's got to clean up those plays before he's going to be the linebacker 2 or even the linebacker 3 for the 49ers. He missed the tackle on Tony Pollard early. And, I don't hold this really against D. Winters. They don't practice tackling live to the ground during camp. I don't think anybody really does during these practices. It's the game because they don't want guys to get hurt. You've got to work on it during these games. But you can't miss tackles like that on third down in the flat. Those are the kind of plays that Dre Greenlaw has made automatic. So D. Winters obviously has to make sure that he cleans that up. And then he abandoned the zone with a bad angle on a third down where they threw to Calvin Ridley a little bit later in the first quarter. And Ridley was able to convert a 3rd and 10 with a 20-something yard gain. And if D. Winters stays home, that doesn't happen. Now, that was the bad. There was also some good from D. Winters. The hit against Will Levis, I mean, he just thudded him up. It was almost shocking to see the Titans put their first-string quarterback and expose him to that kind of hit. So it was just a great play from D. Winters, crossing the field from the opposite hash, fighting his way angle-wise through some potential traffic to make that stop. And then he diagnosed the pitch right from Tennessee to the running back. He said that pre-snap he saw a couple guards pulling, or he saw right at the snap he saw a couple guards pulling. So that's a smart play, really intelligent play from D. Winters. He was able to identify that, avoid the trajectory of the guards, and knife into the backfield. Shanahan hadn't seen the tape yet after the game, but he made a great point. He said guys that are physical, guys, that are playing fast, they tend to flash even from the sideline before you watch the tape. And that's exactly what D. Winters was able to do in this game. That's exactly what Malik Mustapha was able to do in this game. Exactly what Kalia Davis was able to do in this game. Davis had a sack. He had a tackle for loss. A couple times beyond that, it seemed he was living in the backfield. I don't think the 49ers got great defensive line play at all in this game because they're going with a lot of their backups, obviously, but Kalia Davis stood out. If there was a concern for me, I don't think that Robert Beal Jr. played well. Remember when Malik Willis had the big run on the keeper? Robert Beal didn't bite on the keeper. Robert Beal actually, I thought, stayed at home. I thought that he was there to defend Malik Willis, but he kind of froze and he got stuck in this no man's land, and Willis ran right by him. And we talk about Robert Beal has added some weight to be able to handle the run more effectively, but it still seemed to me that he was either getting not swallowed by some of these blocks, but beaten by some of these blocks. And then on the Willis keeper, he just, I mean, that's a play you've got to stay in position for. And I thought that it looked like he was going to be in position, but Willis just ran right by him anyway. So Beal's got to be better against the run. And I did not see him even on tape when I rewatched this flash at any point in the pass rush game. So look out for that, because the 49ers, they need that fourth defensive end for the rotation. As of right now, you've got Bosa, you've got Leonard Floyd, you've got Yetur Gross-Matos. Who's going to be defensive end number 4? Drake Jackson's obviously done for the season. Is it going to be Robert Beal? Is it not going to be Robert Beal? To me, it's not surprising to hear that Josh Uche was in the trade talks between the 49ers and the Patriots, because they can get better if they add another defensive end. I mean, that's still a position that's a little bit sketchy. It's still, though, early for Robert Beal. There's still, I mean, he got his feet wet at the end of last year, obviously got into this game yesterday, got some good playing time. He's somebody I'm going to be keeping a close eye on, though, over the course of the next week. Cody Schrader, I don't think he had as much running room as some of what Jordan Mason had earlier, although Jordan Mason created a lot of running room. You got to give him credit. Schrader, newer guy. What really impressed me is he's not big, but he's tough. And in pass protection, he picked up a linebacker, hard charging linebacker in the end zone on that deep throw from Brandon Allen to Ronnie Bell. Nice job there from Cody Schrader. We'll see more of him over the course of this preseason. And we'll also have to sort out the 49ers injury situation at running back. I thought Trent Taylor was very active yesterday. In a way, the 49ers might be testing Trent Taylor out to see how durable he is, because injuries were an issue for him when he was last with the 49ers. I think he's healthy now. To me, it seemed that he got through that game healthy. We'll hear from Kyle Shanahan probably a little bit later today to ensure that. And then later in the game, Tatum Bethune, the rookie linebacker to Florida State, seemed like he was, I don't want to say that he was living in the backfield. I don't want to say he was pitching a tent back there, but he had a couple plays in the backfield and he was fired up. Of course, that was against the second and the third stringers of Tennessee at that point. But you do like to see guys flash regardless of what the competition is. And the 49ers 7th-round pick did flash. So did Jake Tonjes, the tight end. I have a lot of Jake Tonjes fans who follow me on Twitter. Cal product, was on the practice squad last year. Caught a couple passes, including, on routes that wideouts will run. Showed some good athleticism. I will say this about Jake. In practice, he's been serving as the backup fullback. So he's replacing Kyle Juszczyk on days where Kyle Juszczyk takes a vet day. And I mean, that's worth something. Ross Dwelly used to have that role. Does it earn Tonjes a 53-man spot? We'll find out. Does it give him a much better chance to stay in the building as a practice squad guy? Definitely in that situation. On the kick return at the start, I wanted to know that the big one, the 64-yard one, Samuel Womack got swallowed by a block. I don't know if it's going to be smart to run smaller guys on kick coverage. I think that's one adjustment the 49ers are going to make. It's more like a running play now, right? It's not this open field, people have to win in space. You have to win in more close quarters. It's a smaller play like Samuel Womack. You might actually have some trouble getting off some of the blocks that the 49ers might see. It was a good game. And this was a good little recap, I hope. Not taking questions this time. No time for that. I've got some more important work to do. Anyway, we'll talk to everybody soon. There's your 49ers tape review. I'll have some updates. See you guys. Have a great Sunday.